Hello, Story Seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
Our guest for this episode is an author of horror and comedy, has a huge to-be-read pile, and bloody loves zombies.
She's also the owner of Happy Goat Horror, a site which publishes interviews and reviews of books, movies, and games inside that most terrifying of genres. We would like to warmly welcome Kayleigh Dobbs.
Hello, Kayleigh.
Oh, thanks for being had.
Thanks for having me.
That does make it sound like we did a con, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that's...
we've been had.
Tricked you. We've tricked you into being here tonight.
What am I here
for you? We're about to force you to read a story out. So,
yeah, you better start writing now.
Ah, dang it.
Yeah. So, what led you to start Happy Goat Horror?
Well, I read a lot, and I was writing reviews for other websites, any website that would take me and my reviews, basically, and I got started with Ginger Nuts of Horror, where Jim, that runs that site, was very accommodating, and but basically would always publish anything that I sent to him. And then I was writing for another website called Spooky Isles, doing sort of like listy kind of articles. And then I think it must have been during lockdown, I started thinking, I may as well just do this on my own site so that I'm not restricted by anything, any requirements that other websites have. For example, I can't think of what the requirements I didn't like were. I don't think there was anything with Ginger Nuts, but yeah, I just thought I may as well pop it all in one place, and then I didn't expect it to take off. But it did a little bit, so now I have that. Hence the huge TBR.
You did tell me at FantasyCon, but I'd like you to repeat the tale on mic for me, please, about the gigantic amount of books that you reviewed in quite a short period of time.
Oh God, it was. Imagine, if you will, May of 2023. A normal month for most, and I got very stressed about the size of the review TBR, particularly because I tend to not turn any books down when people send me review requests, because I don't know what I'm going to like based off a synopsis. So I try to do everything that's sent to me, but it was really mounting up, so I just decided to try to clear the TBR pile in 1 month. And it was either 47 or 67 books. I can't remember which now, but that broke my brain a little bit. So I was doing reading vlogs for my YouTube channel as I was going. And I think I've done irreparable damage to my brain.
How did you do that? That's more than one book a day, right?
Yeah, and I honestly don't know. Like, if you asked my husband, he'd probably tell you that I was just a puddle of pajamas, getting more and more weird as the month went on, because I have a full-time job, but I'm lucky that I work from home and I can work my hours whenever I want because I freelance. So I was sort of getting up quite earlier than I normally don't bother setting an alarm, if I'm being honest, unless I have to be up for an appointment or something. And then so I was getting up earlier than usual, hammering out my work, and then just reading. And everything else went out the window. And initially I thought, I probably won't be able to clear the whole pile, but I'll make a really big dent in it. But about halfway through the month, I started to think, like obsessively about. I started to think I have to. There's no other option. So I don't think I could ever do it again, and I wouldn't want to.
That sounds brutal. That's like a David Blaine like self-mutilation level trick, but about a to-be-read pile.
Yeah, the sense of satisfaction I had when I finished, though, was so immense. I think I felt like I'd achieved more than when I got my master's degree. It was crazy. Of course, I then reopened the reviews requests and immediately had 30 also
So,
straight away. So I was
should
like,
we book
oh,
another interview with you
okay.
in June time to see
But
if you've done it again?
Have you
Yeah,
no,
they all
I'm never
say
doing
that.
it again. It was a dark time.
have you put like a limit to how many you're going to do in a month? How?
No, I've tried to remind myself
Yeah.
that I write these reviews for free, and that I have a life outside of um writing book reviews and reading books. Although I do spend all my time reading, my free time, but I have tried to just remind myself when I start to get stressed by the amount on the pile that I don't actually owe
Yeah,
anyone
absolutely.
these
Yeah.
reviews. If that makes sense. Like I tell it, yeah, I tell everybody I'm happy to put it on the pile, and I try to do them in the order they come in. But I have 50 so far, so if you're okay waiting for potentially 2 years, I will read it, but don't rely on
Well,
me for
you're
a
in luck
time frame.
tonight because you don't have
Basically,
to
is what
read
I tell
anything. You can
everybody.
just sit back and listen to a couple of stories. The prompt that we've all written to is slap,
Yeah.
and I believe Nico, you're going to be going first. So lay one on me, man.
Slap. In the moment, there was a great deal of noise. However, in my recollection, Ave Maria is playing. Impossibly, my memory cuts to show slow motion angles I couldn't possibly have perceived. Some of them, I'm pretty sure, are Dutch. I've heard people say that. If you don't know Ave Maria, then I can't really help you there, but know this: it's dead haunting and biblical. It's sort of like calm, but not really. So that's playing. Just imagine that. And the song's just starting, but everything else is in media res. That's another one that I've heard. It means it's already happening. Like when you're absolutely smashed and you wake up halfway through blowing chunks in someone's front garden, that is chunder in media res, that is. Right, Ave Maria. So that's playing, and the world around me is dead slow, proper snail's pace. I don't have absolute clarity on what I've said to the fella. Dialogue's all a bit blurry. We're off script light. In my memories lens, he's a massive lump of a man. He's somehow all neck and no neck at the same time. His head has got the proportions of a well-hammered thumb. It juts, bald as a newborn's arse, and it's gleaming like an oiled tit in that milky piss yellow of the streetlights. The body it's protruding from is broad at the shoulder and chest, muscular, but I distinctly remember him having a beer belly, like a round extra knuckle on the fist of his dynamic form. The polo shirt he bought from the market stretches and distorts strangely around it. It's as though his belly button is a tiny black hole, a hungry aperture pulling the nylon garb inextricably in, leaving his underbelly exposed. In my recollection, it's as clear as day that the little man above the falsified logo is not playing polo. In my recollection, he seems to be astride not a live, sporty horse, but some sort of wide-hoofed beast. A dromedary, I think. And the rider's holding aloft what I believe is one of them massive beach parasols, but in its collapsed configuration. Is he chasing down an unwanted visitor to a nudist beach? Is he seeking more comfortable climes? I cannot ask, for he is made of thread. Right, I'm too zoomed in. Let's back out. Giant thumbhead bloke, cheap shirt, fat gut. New details. His right arm is at full extension. If everything wasn't doing this sort of incredible John Woo hyper slow-mo dove taking off in the background business, it would have been moving at something close to Mark 10. The hand is not horizontal. No clean, swift karate strike is this. There's no grace in the way it's slicing through the air. The hand is vertical, and it cuts a great rending swathe of particulates out of the atmosphere. Most importantly, it's gathering a huge number of airborne chips. Gull-like, his hand is snatching them from the air, much as their once home, a half shell of white polystyrene, pisses them wildly into the ether. I am drawn to those chips. I watch as a mother would if her toddler tumbled from a high balcony. They were, until a moment ago, my chips. They were cast as an act of defiance. A desperate attempt. A salt-coated, vinegar-drenched missile bombardment. And they tumble and cascade, spinning wildly. Like golden flecks of hope, they split apart and leave me unprotected and still famished. Now only beer remains within my belly. The Ave Maria drowns the chorus of yells. I can't hear his name being called by the leopard print-clad woman behind him. Might be Barry. Or Steve. He looks like a Barry or a Steve. At least spiritually, he's a Barry. Or a Gary. Not a Larry that has a different feel in spite of the phonic similarities. His partner yells at him, and I can imagine what. Leave him, he ain't worth it. And I agree, I'm not to him anyway. Personally, I regard myself as having high worth in an intrinsic sort of way. But to you, spiritual Gary or Barry or Steve, I'm but an insect. A fly that has, for a moment, landed upon the turd that is your life and been sick. But the fly drinks that sick back up and takes off, and soon I will. I promise. But we don't have a flashback, so I can't remember what I've done to offend him. And only in the stark horror of the sudden lucidity delivered by impending doom as my brain started to record and play Ave Maria. My mates are somewhere back along the journey. A nightclub somewhere in this town is adorned in them, like hoodie-clad statues of Roman emperors. They no doubt line the edges of the place, like sexual gargoyles ringing the holy cathedral of debauchery. Or they've gone home, or they're still in the chippy. But I am out of options, bravery, and chips. Ave Maria intensifies. I realise I do not know the words, so my brain's been filling in vague Italian gibberish. In the rear of shot, a young man holds aloft a dark metal rectangle. iPhone, perhaps, or one of them pixel thingies. It's capturing the moment. Maybe it's doing it in slow motion. I see a tattoo upon spiritual Gary, Barry, not Larry's forearm. It declares his love for a string of names. The uppermost one is struck through with a far darker, fresher tattoo line. Well, at least he still loves the children, I think, extrapolating fast. Even if the crossed out one was a bitch. Good for you, fella. But you're a bloody horrible dad, though. The final chips rain like crispy hail to the pavement, and I notice red dots upon his hand as it arcs towards me like a reaper's scythe. I hope it's ketchup from my chips, not blood from his last victim. Some poor sap. He's down a doner kebab and beaten to a lifeless pulp in the alleyway behind W.H. Smith's. And he's got the air of a killer and the spirit of a Gary. And with a crack like a thundercloud's clapperboard, I know his mighty meaty palm has impacted with my addled head. But I've already cut to black.
Solid. Incredibly British. Incredibly British. I also got strong Russell Brand energy from the kind of like fairly shit accent but quite verbose method of speech.
Yeah, that sort of self-important, I am a poet, don't you know it? Shit.
Sort of thing. Yeah. Go on.
You're really good at reading a character, Nico.
That's my thing.
It's one of your many things. One of your many things. You're very good at many things. That was good. I wrote down press F to pay respects because you mentioned Ave Maria about 6 times.
Yeah.
And the opening was like someone's taken over my film studies class and I can't get them to stop.
Yeah.
The touch angles and the in media res, etc., etc. I had fun with it. I think it's rare that you dial in so hard on a particular moment.
Yeah.
What did you think? Yeah, go on, Kayleigh. What do you think? No, go ahead.
I liked. Sorry, go on. I was gonna say I liked the characterization of everyone and everything, and especially the not Larry. That's a totally different thing. I was picturing all of the Larrys I've met, and I don't know if I've met any real life
No.
ones.
Yeah,
But there is a
Larry's a
look
much
to a
softer
Larry
name in
for
spite
me.
of the very similar sound, which is entirely where that joke came from. I thought Larry David, I
Yeah.
believe. So
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a very different vibe. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's it all came from because I had the mental image of a massive slap coming in slow motion, and my brain did put Ave Maria over it.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that's it then. What is the story here? And yeah, I've never really described a freeze frame for just over 1,000 words before, but there's something to it.
I think so. There was some brilliant turns of phrase. The hoodie-clad statues of Roman emperors really got me. That was such a cool image.
Yeah.
Extremely.
It was very cinematic.
At least he still loves the children got me as well. Like
Oh,
having
God.
crossed out the mum's name. That's
such a real thing.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those tattoos.
There's definitely a lot of where I'm from in this as well. A very particular part of Essex where no one would even stop to see this happen. They were, someone might pull out a phone and film it, but that wasn't a thing when I was young. So someone might just get a clump in the street, and you just sort of pass by. I don't know if the world's still like that anymore.
I hope not. Oh no.
It is where I live.
Not good.
We just about got running water.
Without getting too specific, where do you live? South Wales. Lovely.
I'm in South Wales.
At least you've got beautiful
in the
countryside
valleys.
and the sound.
I do love. We've had
Yeah.
2 lovely Welsh people on.
Yeah.
In this year
Yeah.
so far, and you have both given very different pictures of what the life in the valleys is like quite quickly.
Dan Hanley.
Who else did you get? Oh. Yeah.
Definitely.
We all have different
No, that's
experiences.
fair.
The blood is that blood from his last victim, or like sauce from a doner kebab? That made me chuckle a lot. I liked it. I think there was like a bit where the pacing ramped up a bit because obviously you had to set up what was happening at the start,
Yeah,
and then we hit somewhere in the middle. It started to like it found a pace, and then obviously you had to bring it to a conclusion. It was an interesting exercise, I think, as you say, to like try and describe a freeze frame. And Kayleigh, you're totally right. Like great, loads of characterization in every sentence. But like, how did you find doing that kind of writing exercise, Nico?
I think it's very clear in, like you're saying, in the pacing, in that I would find myself sort of pulling towards wanting the slap to land and something to happen, and then realizing no, the slap is what happens. The slap is the crescendo, and having to pace myself. And I think it does show even after a couple of passes, where trying to make the beginning a bit quicker, but you have to put the foundations in, and it was definitely an exercise. I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to give things that especially in short fiction, you might not give as much time to, describing so much about one person, because often you have to give, you have to let your reader paint the picture themselves. But the majority of this story is just letting you know what this Gary, Barry, Steve guy is. And even though we probably could quite easily summon up the lager lout, football hooligan image, I got to afford it a lot of time, and very different to what we normally do.
Yeah, solid. No,
You did pack
okay.
a lot of imagery in. Sorry, Ben, I keep interrupting you. Yeah, there was you painted a really full, complete picture of the moment. I thought, with your descriptions, it's hard in a story this short to get a lot of those details in. So I thought you did really well with it was very colourful in my mind as I was listening.
If you want to get loads and loads and loads of description in, make your story take place over roughly half a second. That's
Like a D&D game. Like you get into structured time, and it takes you 2 hours to do 12 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Oh, fantastic! No, I had a lot of fun with that. I thought that was really, really nice. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Kayleigh, do you fancy hitting us with your slap?
Go on then. This is called Will Was Too Weird. I, like everyone else, was shocked when it happened. That sound reverberated around the entire world. It was played over and over again for weeks, and now it's a meme. I think I laughed initially, such was my surprise, but it wasn't funny really. The more time that passes, the less funny it becomes, actually, especially to me. I'm talking, of course, about the infamous televised slap. I was in the venue as it happens, kept in the shadows like the rest of the non-celebrity scum. To think, I moved all the way from the UK to the US to pursue my acting dreams, and the only role I landed was that of a server manically keeping everyone's drinks topped up while trying to be invisible. Because, God forbid, one of those Botox dickholes is burdened by noticing you exist. We have to dress up in suits for the televised awards. I don't know why. Like I said, we're not even supposed to be seen. I'll tell you who really deserves an award, actually. My friend Steve. He's like 110 pounds, and for some reason he's the only one always sprinting up and down from the cellar carrying champagne boxes. How his little legs haven't snapped, I don't know. And we're not even allowed to accept tips. Imagine that, serving drinks for some of the richest people in the world, getting paid peanuts, and no tips. Hang on a minute, sorry, what was I saying? Oh, right, yeah, the slap. The thing about that slap is that, naturally, because a celebrity did it, it's the only one anyone talks about. But there were more. Will was just the start of it. From the back of the room, I watched his pampered hand fly into that little unsuspecting face, and then I whispered to Steve, what on earth possessed him to do that? Steve shrugged. Should we call security? I asked. But even as the words left my mouth, I noticed the venue security had barely moved. Getting arrested and or removed from venues for assaulting someone only applies to the poor, apparently. As I looked around, observing the underwhelmed reactions of everyone that just watched a comedian get smacked for telling a joke, I started to wonder if I'd imagined it. That was until I heard a second slap from the other side of the room, almost as loud as the first one. I looked towards the sound to see the toilet attendant, staring down at Robert Pattinson, her hands clasped over her mouth like she couldn't believe what she'd done. None of us like Twilight, but that's going a bit far, I think. Steve and I gasped, and then, against my own will, I found myself turning in his direction. Swinging. He didn't even flinch as my hand came down on his bony cheek. Why would he? I'd never hit him before. I hit him so hard I knocked him sideways and the tray of champagne flutes he'd been holding crashed to the floor. He stared at me, shocked. I stared back at him, equally shocked. I meant to apologise, to tell him I didn't know what had happened, that I hadn't meant to do it. I'd momentarily lost control of my faculties. But what actually came out of my mouth was, "Take that, you specky twat!" I tried to slap my hands over my mouth and found myself in a struggle with my own limbs. They wouldn't comply. The next thing I knew, even though I started sweating with the strain of trying to keep my hands balled into fists, I gave Steve a double middle finger. Not only that, but I accompanied the insult with a little impish jig, while giggling. Before I could strike him again, I could already feel my hand wanting to do it. I ran off in the direction of the nearest fire exit. I burst onto the street, my face aching with a manic grin that I didn't mean to grin, startling an old couple. I slapped the glasses off the man's face and then followed it up by slapping his wife's mouth, her false teeth dislodged. What's wrong with me? I thought. Well, you're possessed, obviously, came the immediate reply out of my own mouth, against my will, in a voice that wasn't quite mine. Why me? I couldn't help but whine, a bit pitifully, I admit. Couldn't stay in the first guy, it was too weird in there, came the reply. Well, what about the toilet attendant? I demanded. I know it's selfish to want someone else to be possessed instead of me, but I was quite peeved all of a sudden that this thing had spent only seconds in its first two hosts, but seemed content to just hang out in my body. I wanted it back. The toilet attendant wasn't me, it replied. She did that on her own. And I knew it was true because our minds were enmeshed. I guess that attendant really must have hated poor Robert. Maybe she was mad about the Batman casting, I don't know. Not wanting to question why I only had control of my lower half, lest the hijacker within seized control of my legs too, I ran in the direction of home, hoping that I could. I slapped every person I saw on my way. I couldn't stop myself doing it, but I could feel my palms stinging red after each assault. When I finally made it back to my apartment, the demon wouldn't let me get my keys out of my pocket. It just slapped at the front door until my annoyed roommate let me in. Of course, I I slapped her. I slapped her silly, to be honest. In case you're wondering, you can't sleep off a demonic possession. That's the thing. I woke up the next day feeling light. I was so relieved. It was like the whole thing had been a weird dream. I wandered out to the living room to find my furious roommate sipping coffee, and as I opened my mouth to extend what little of an explanation I could concoct on the spot, I extended my hand instead, and yep, you guessed it, I slapped her again. I slapped her face first, and then I slapped her scalding hot coffee into her face. I no longer have a roommate. The thing, the evil little compulsive thing, it just goes away when I'm alone, but re-emerges and goes on the attack every time I see another person, every single time. It's like it lies dormant when there's nothing fun to do, and the only thing it finds fun is slapping everyone out of my life. It's a nightmare. I can't order food in because it'll just lunge at the delivery person, and I can't go out to the shops because, well, you know, people and potential victims everywhere. That would already be bad enough, but the demon has also taken to gleefully screeching, "They call me the Slapper!" with each open-palmed swing. Slang is different here, so it's not quite as embarrassing as it might be in the UK, but it still makes me die inside every time. I obviously couldn't go back to work. I called Steve to apologise, thinking that it would be safe since he wasn't in front of me, and he actually answered the phone, which was nice. Unfortunately, the demon emerged to yell a homophobic slur at him, out of my mouth. Steve hung up and blocked me, which is probably just as well, because if the demon ever discovers texting, I dread to think what it would send to my parents. I'm starving, to be honest. A second eviction slip was pushed under my door this morning. My internet was cut off yesterday. All I have left is tap water. I spend my miserable days listening to my stomach growl, wondering if the demon possessed Will to smack Chris, or if the demon was just lurking inside him when Will did it, and that's how it got the idea in the first place. I've asked it, but it ghosts me unless I attempt human contact. All I know, because it has told me this, is that it's comfy and it's not leaving. I wanted to write this while I still have the strength, before I completely waste away. Steve, mate, I really am sorry for slapping you, and I'm sorry I called you a scrawny poof. Once again, and for the last time, it wasn't me. I can't tell you that in person, but at least I can write my own last words. So, here are my last words. My favourite quote from the late great Shakespeare, and I think it's particularly relevant here. No, wait, please don't, for Christ's sake, at least let me write my own last word. They call me the Slapper!
That was really funny. I like that a lot.
Man.
I like that a lot.
They called me the Slapper, making me laugh and then making me double laugh when you put a.
Yeah.
The slang's not the same here, so it's not as bad. But I felt like that was a treat just for us as Brits.
Oh, I thought you liked it because I lost confidence in it immediately as soon as I started reading it.
And had really good pacing to it. I was basically laughing from when they burst out of the room and they just slapped that old couple. I think that was that really got me for whatever reason. It probably speaks more about me than it does about your story actually. But like that got me, and then I just kept laughing. Like I slapped her. Yeah, slapped her silly. If I'm honest, the delivery was perfect.
It was slightly early for me. It was the "take that, you specky twat." Like as soon as she said that, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be really silly." And just even the little details of the demon not getting the keys out and just slapping the door, just repeatedly slapping the front door to get in. Oh,
but I think that all worked because you grounded it really well in a particular perspective right at the start. That's a really like that. Very critical of like the rich and famous and being a server in the room and seeing them be, as you put it, Botox dickholes was really integral to then knowing the character to see why it would be such a problem that this was happening for them. It reminded me, I saw a film recently, which is called Blink Twice by Zoe Kravitz. It's got like loads of people in it.
But, I haven't seen it.
I really enjoyed it. I think it was Zoe Kravitz's first film, and she like wrote and directed it, which is kind of cool. But it has a whole section near the start that's quite similar, where there's like servers, and it's from their point of view, and you see the sort of behind the scenes of a rich upper class kind of American banquet speech laden scene. And so I felt like you conjured that really quickly, so that was really good. And then it just went for it with the concept of this like slap hysteria. The choice. Go on, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I think I was just exercising some pettiness from when I was a waitress, to be honest.
Grounding it in that The Chris Rock Will Smith thing at the Oscars did a lot as well, I think, because it was something everyone knows about, and just very, very quickly setting that scene meant that when you then turned it, because that's already a thing that was super bizarre at the time.
Very weird. Very weird.
We all went, wait, that can't just fucking happen, can it?
So weird.
That isn't just a thing that a person can do and have no repercussions. So it's already outside of what we were at that point ready to accept. To then take it up another notch to someone running into the street and slapping everyone they meet. But yeah, just fantastic fun.
Yeah.
That incident was so weird. I was the same as you. I saw it and I thought, well, surely not. Like, even I've not enjoyed some jokes before when I'm watching comedians, but you can't slap a comedian for telling a joke, or just a person in general. It's a weird thing. I think that the inspiration for that story, because as soon as I saw the prompts, it popped into my head, and I think it was the complete bewilderment of Chris, and just the lack of of a normal reaction from everybody
100%.
else.
The most bizarre reaction, however, is
what
from
got me.
Will Smith's wife, because she sort of nods in like a that's how we do kind of way, and that is so fucked up. It's unreal in that moment.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I had a moment during your story where I thought it was going to be like an I Spartacus moment, but for slaps. You know how so it's so weird that somebody's been slapped up on stage that the servers all just start slapping people to cover it. Yeah. Right.
I started writing something similar, like that was my initial idea, but I got so carried away writing about all of these. I went down a rabbit hole looking at which celebrities were at that event in total. I had all of the, and then I was like, wow, this is way too long. I'm gonna have to dial it back, because I got a bit carried away, because I guess I was amusing myself with it. I did keep.
I was going to say it's almost like you've got some goss on Pattinson. What's wrong with Pat?
What do you need to do? Come on.
No, I actually really like Pattinson, so I just wanted to make it clear that he didn't deserve to get slapped, no matter how much people hate Twilight. Because I think my favourite thing about him was during the promotion for all the Twilight films, it's never been more clear that an actor hated the franchise they were in every time he got interviewed, and I don't know why, he just cracks me up. And I had a signed photo sent to my house once from Robert Pattinson, because it was a get well card with a signed photo, because I'd been in hospital, and the guy that I was seeing at the time, his mum used to cut Robert Pattinson's hair, and they were neighbours. So she just was thought it would cheer me up, and so forever since
that
then,
is
I've
lovely,
been
but also bizarre, right?
A nice guy.
Yeah.
Be like, you're cutting someone's hair, and then you just my son's partner is my child's partner is is a bit ill. Do you reckon you could sign a card? Like, who said? Like, obviously you kind of have to say yes because they've got you at scissor point, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really sweet.
Well,
I think she just went to his house and was like, and asked his parents.
Scissor still.
And then because they lived locally. And the weirdest thing is, because I know you gotta get on reading, but I'll just finish off the Robert Pattinson story with this. While I was in hospital, as bad luck would have it, my flat was burgled.
No.
And they stole the Robert Pattinson picture. So
no.
The guy's mum went back and was like, "Oh,
sake.
this is what happens."
That's
fantastic.
I'm surprised you didn't die of it cringe. That's just, oh my god.
I thought it's okay that I'm just like a random name to this guy, that he won't remember doing this in a few years or in a few weeks even. But I thought it was, I don't know, it was very wholesome though.
I'm fairly sure that he thinks that you sold the second one. You shouldn't do that.
Robert, I didn't. Robert.
Yep.
Robert, when you listen to this,
we know
I
he is a
assure
regular
you.
listener.
It shows up in the stats. Yeah.
Everyone else is really vague. We just get some countries and cities, but it does say Robert Pattinson's house. One listen.
Yeah. It's got a little Batman symbol next to it.
Specifically, yeah.
Well, we've had two quite silly stories there, Ben.
Well, we'll see.
I'm wondering if you've got a trifecta for us. Let's have a go.
Slap. You get them donkeys moving, and there will be reward treats. Pogrim nodded his head vigorously at the idea that his future held snacks. Yeah! The chain leash securing Pogrim by his collar to the rock wall jangled with the sound of his enthusiasm. He uncurled his long fingers and held his snot-green hand up to the master in the hope there might be an advance on the promise of treats. The master blinked his one working eye and shook his head. The other goblins, affixed to the mine's outer wall at intervals and left to bake in the hot sun, snickered to see Pogrim denied that special privilege. If you come back without getting the lights back on, there'll be reprimand whips. Pogrim shook his head as terror of the smacking whip's bite overwhelmed him. Nah! His fear quickly transformed into the urge to do a good job, be a good gobbo. The master's bad eye was black where the whites and little pink veins should have been, a lasting reminder that this human had seen things he should not have seen. That eye twitched and spun with a mind of its own, and the skin around the socket looked like distressed leather. Good. Off you go now, Pogrim, and remember, if it smells sweet, then that's true dark. Don't look at it, else your eyes will burn, and we've no use for blind gobbos. The master unclipped Pogrim's leash from his collar and aimed a hurrying kick after him, which missed. The goblin had already scampered into the dark mine entrance, huffing for the scent of donkeys. Pogrim's eyes could see where the master's could not, and the mundane darkness within the mine was painted in bright greys for him. His nose led him to a side tunnel, where he found a metal box on the rock floor which smelled of bread. Pogrim unclasped the box's latch and admired its contents: fresh bread, lettuce, tomatoes, and bacon. Drool beaded up on the tip of his long tongue and fell to stain a patch of the white bread. A whisper behind his eyes warned Pogrim against the theft, and he carefully reclasped the lid. Those whispers were always louder in the dark. In the sun, his mind was empty of all but the most basic drives, but in the dark, the voice behind his eyes helped him. Remembering that made Pogrim feel safer as he loped deeper into the mine, following a line of wire-linked crystal lights. The lights were dead, but their prisms still glinted for Pogrim's eyes. More side tunnels appeared as he got deeper. They were lower, as though cut for smaller masters, and Pogrim could see they all ended in shiny stone walls with ornate circular patterns on them. Doors, the whispers told him, doors which the humans cannot use. Instead, the human tunnels cut through the rock to the side of those barriers to reach and plunder the caves behind them. The line of crystal lights led Pogrim through one of those caves. Its ceiling was twice as tall as he was, and small plinths a few inches high and wide enough to stand on decorated the even floor of that cave at regularly spaced intervals. Pogrim, whistling a tune he had just remembered, hopped up onto one and jumped to the next one, and the next. He saw that the plinths at the edges of the cave were still occupied with statues of goblins, like him. Except where he was hunched from his time serving the human masters, they stood proud and wore ornamental armour, their stern features forever locked in stone. The cave was otherwise littered with hastily discarded human equipment and tools. The whispers reasoned for him that it was evidence of the panic the humans felt when threatened by true darkness. Pogrim nodded. Something within him had always known they should fear it. The exit at the back of the cave spat him out into a huge vertical cavern, around which a spiraled sloping path had been carved to give access to the lower levels of the mine. Here the mountain had been hollowed, but he noticed that the dead lights stopped after only a few rotations down. The whispers told him that was as far as the humans had reached, but Pogrim's brow wrinkled with the exertion of thought as he looked over the edge and tried to understand why there were far more levels than the humans had made it to. In unfamiliar depths of thought, Pogrim followed the path around until he faintly smelled donkey shit coming from a tunnel opening. It was one of the many tunnels which led away from the central spiral, like spokes on a wheel. He set off along it, and when his feet scuffed the rock floor, a shape moved within, just ahead of him. "Hello?" The whispers told Pogrim to say nothing. "Hello?" The voice sounded again, and Pogrim watched a human shuffle towards him. Both of his eyes were pure black, and he held his hands out before him to feel for any obstacles. "I can't see. Is someone there? The lights went off. Can you help me?" Pogrim held his breath as the master passed close by, and watched as his slow steps took him out onto the ledge. The man gave a shocked gasp when he stepped into the nothingness beyond, but Pogrim did not hear him scream. Only a far-off thud confirmed that he had found the bottom of the mine. "They are not your masters," the whispers told him. "They are your enemies." Pogrim found the donkeys waiting patiently, crudely lashed to their task. Their eyes had been stolen from them by the true dark, but they seemed not to care as their minds were already broken from perpetually walking in a circle underground for years. In the centre of the ring of donkeys lay the hulking circle of the dynamo. It was their task to wind. Thick arterial cables poured from one end of it, and Pogrim saw that those cables had once connected to an opening on the wall. Instead, they had been cut, stripped back, and wired into a metal box the humans had placed on the floor. Pogrim saw that box was connected to the crystal lights, which the humans had festooned through their mine. Is it their mine? Pogrim wondered, finally recognizing the whispers behind his eyes as his own internal voice. Or have they stolen something more from me than my labour? Summoned by his rising consciousness, a sweet smell rose on the air, and the true dark began to appear. It boiled through the rock walls, and tendrils of it wove through the bored and blind donkeys towards him. It struck him as though earthing itself in his eyes, and filled him with knowledge. He saw it all. He saw the bright flare in the sky as their sun grew hotter and brighter. He saw his people fleeing to their mountain shelters to escape it. Felt the passing of eons as he and his fellows slumbered in stasis. Saw the dimensional rift open up, and the humans pour through it like a plague on the sunlit lands which had been untouched for millennia. Pogrim winced as they found the mountain holds, saw them dig, saw himself stood in stasis with his fellow guardians by the first door. As time and understanding filled him, Pogrim watched them awaken and enfeeble the first goblins, using the bright sun to enslave them. It was not a mine, nor even a last enclave of his people anymore. It was a bank of ready-made slaves which the humans had systematically plundered. That abuse had continued until the darkness began to fight back. The true dark, which he now understood to be a revenant, made from all that his people had lost, had finally succeeded in waking a goblin to their plight. The knowledge infused his eyes with darkness and made him shiver with uncontainable rage. One of the donkeys headbutted Pogrim, who jolted from the reverie. Working with a sudden purpose, he tore the cables from the human light box and skillfully rewired them into the wall. Pogrim then stepped smartly behind the donkey who had startled him and raised his hand. "Yeah!" he shouted, and brought his hand down on it in a palm-numbing rump slap. The donkey surged forwards, forcing the one in front of him forwards, which in turn prompted the next donkey, and so on, until the circle of donkeys was moving steadily, and the bright wires within the goblin-made dynamo began to whine in their coils. Electrified darkness poured into the circuitry Pogrim knew was hidden within the wall, and he knew it would find each plinth in every hall of their holdfast. He had woken his fellows up to this nightmare. Pogrim gritted his sharp teeth. One thing was certain. When night came, he was going back to get that fucking treat.
It's like you wrote it just for me.
You were in my mind whilst I was writing it.
I think not enough Goblin liberation, not propaganda, literature is written. I think not enough people are talking about the mistreatment of those people. But that was really cool, man. The narrator voice, like the internal thoughts voice, being seeming to be something that was haunting him, and then that moment of clarity and realization that it's actually just his own sort of intelligence battering away at the walls was really cool.
Thank you.
I actually wrote down before you did the little reveal afterwards, when he stepped aside to let the master pass. I thought, God, that's so, like, he just thinks of all humans as masters, and it really caught me. And then the brain saying, "They are not your masters." I was like, oh no, it's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen, and yeah, it did. Really, really cool world building. I want to know more about what technology these goblins had first, and what caused this rift, and where did the humans come from. And that's good fantasy writing, man. I want to know more. That's a good feeling.
You guys are really good writers, by the way. Just have to say,
that's really kind.
Oh, your way with words. I was so engrossed in that whole thing. I really liked the line, the exit at the back of the cave spat him out.
Oh yeah. It's quite kinetic, isn't it? It's
yeah.
drives it forwards.
The true dark is scary too.
Yeah, that was where the concept actually started, and I was like, how the fuck does this relate to slap? Like, I need to figure this one out, and I solved it with Donkey Dynamos, so I think it's okay.
Donkey Dynamos are the future of mechanism. Yeah. That's X's next thing.
But originally, the idea was just to try and find something to do with the fact that, like, what if there was like a truer darkness that blinded people when they saw it? Was the idea?
Yeah.
But I needed to characterize why. So, hence Goblin mythos.
I liked there was a dialect thing at the beginning, with the way that the humans spoke, where he said things like treat snacks.
Yeah.
I just really liked it. There's something to that. Combining two words into one that they have the same meaning, really, but one, it's not even the same meaning, isn't it? Because you did it with the whip as well. One was what it was, and the other one was how it was. Like, you will receive treat and it will be snack, you will receive hurt and it will be whip. It was, yeah, just a nice little thing to have in there. I liked that a lot.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like there are problems with the story. It does feel a little bit like a mess to me, potentially, and maybe it doesn't resolve what it needs to resolve inside the time. So I'm just wondering, from a point of view of like a horror writer, Kayleigh, how you would punch this up for horror purposes.
I thought it was scary. I thought the atmosphere was very like foreboding. The idea of like a dark that could take your sight, because usually that's just such a good idea, because usually if people are blinded by something, it's like a bright light, or it's like the complete opposite kind of idea. How to punch it up? I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do differently with that. I thought it worked. I thought it worked really well. I was quite tense.
Oh, thank you. That's high praise. Yeah.
I'd say possibly the only thing is there's loads of concepts in there, and maybe it's too many for that amount of words. Because like there's a rift that the humans came through. That is a story. There's a darkness that steals your sight. That is a story. There was a time when humans used sunlight to enslave goblins. That's a story. There are donkey dynamos. That's a fucking story. Like, I think maybe something could come out to give the other stuff a bit more room to breathe. But it's a thing we've seen before, where you have an idea and it's a good idea, and as you write, it starts growing into a great idea. So you don't want to let any of it go because it's become a great idea. But you're then prohibited by the word count from letting everything stand up, stretch its legs, have a walk around the room, shake hands with people.
Yeah, I definitely loaded this one with like novella ammunition, and then fired it through a little gun. But Yeah, no, I think that's all good feedback, guys. Thank you. And yeah, I'm up in the air about that one. I feel like that might be one of the weaker ones I've done recently, but it was certainly fun to write, and I think my brain is thinking of like novel stuff recently, so maybe that's why I sort of went with too much stuff. But yeah, definitely take your point that something could come out of that because it's too much for.
Maybe
too
for
much idea.
sorry, I keep interrupting you.
It's okay.
Oh, maybe just for the sake of this exercise, there was like maybe a bit much, but also one of my favorite things if I'm reading short stories, my favorites are always the shorts that we're like in one little snapshot of the world, but a really big world has been painted. And I do think you did that. The world building, like I wanted to know. I would like read a full novel of this. So
Thank you. That's really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
we
say
went.
something could come out, but don't throw any of it away. Do use it if you take something out. That's the real trick.
We went to two opposite ends of the spectrum there, didn't we? I think, Nico, because you went so micro and I
It's
went quite
super
macro.
micro, and you went really macro. Yeah.
Oh, well, fantastic. Those are 3 stories written to slap. Your slap count was significantly higher than ours, Kayleigh. So
You
I
absolutely
think you
outdid
win.
us.
I think you win the slap meter.
I went a little bit
prize in
literal
front of
with
it.
the theme, the prompts.
Hey, sometimes that's the way to go.
It can
I'm
be.
glad that everyone did actually do a physical slap. That I had lots of things I'm listening to, slapping on a coat of paint, and this song really slaps. And in the end, I thought, oh god, that feels wanky. Someone's gonna hit someone. Let's do it properly. Let's go old school. Now,
Yeah.
Kayleigh,
Yes.
soon there will be an interview.
Yes.
But before that happens, everyone listening has to wait for a week. So in that meantime, where can they go to find out more about you, keep up to date with you on social media, and more importantly, get more of your work to read?
You can mostly find me through my review stuff, so that's Happy Goat Horror. I've got Instagram, Facebook because I'm old, so I still have Facebook, and I'm on YouTube, and the website is happygoathorror.com. So if you search that, you will always find me. And that's where I chat to most people, even about my own stuff, because that's where I meet most people. But if anyone wants to read my own work, I have a micro collection out of apocalyptic horror stories called The End that you can get from Black Shuck Books directly, or it's available on Amazon as well.
Fantastic. Well, join us next week and we'll be chatting more with Kayleigh and picking your brains about some storytelling. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne, and for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?